My name is Kristen Harrell. I'm the chair of the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority. I have the honor of doing that with my fellow board members, Evan Silverio, Elias Rodriguez, sitting over here, and James Patrick O'Donohue. Hey, James! Yay. And they are a wonderful team to work with. I'm going to be very brief. I really just want to welcome you. Thank you for coming out on a dark and cold night at the beginning of winter to start what we think is going to be a very exciting process. I want to emphasize the start. This is the first official community meeting for this planning process. So this is the beginning. There's going to be lots more chances for other people to get involved, for you all to stay involved. So look around the room. You guys are the first ones. We're going to be here hopefully in about a year with a finished plan, and you're going to remember that you were here when it started. So the Redevelopment Authority's job, we're an independent board of the city. Our job is to help the city plan and then implement those plans. When we got started under Mayor Rivera's administration last year, we realized we didn't really have a plan that was still operative. So the first step really is to get a good plan. And to do that, we needed to raise resources and we needed to get some help. So I am going to introduce you to the help that we got. Maggie Superchurch right here, who's a Lawrence native, resident anyway, who is our consultant. We call her a house doctor. She shows up when there's an emergency and she takes good care of us. And she's going to kick this meeting off. But thank you, welcome, and let's get started.
Thank you. Right. So thanks to Kristen, thanks to all of you for being here. Really excited to get this process underway. There's going to be a lot of work involved. As Kristen said, this is just the first of many opportunities for you all to participate, to provide your feedback to help shape this plan. The plan will only be useful and it will only be successful if all of you and many others are part of it and part of making it a success. And so we really not only welcome but really need your participation and support. So this is a process that will, as Kristen said, take about a year, and there will be many opportunities for people to be involved through meetings like this, through a Citizens Advisory Committee that we'll talk about later tonight, through input on the website, through an open house we're planning shortly. So there'll be a lot of ways for you all to be involved, and we really encourage you to do that. The other thing that I should say is this is both work and fun. So planning sometimes sounds really boring or tedious, but it can also be fun. This is a chance for us to all think and talk about what we want the future of the city to be and what it will take for us to get there. So we hope you will work hard with us. We hope you will have fun with us. And we look forward to getting that process started tonight. So before we get into the heavy work and some of the fun, I'd like to introduce our mayor, Dan Rivera, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for being here tonight. This is really important, and I think you should look around and look at the people that are in the room today, because when you're at the end of this thing and everybody's trying to figure out how to get this thing supported by everyone across the city, it's going to be the people that were in this room early on, along with the staff, that are going to get it done. My role here tonight is like your role. I'm a citizen of the community. I'm interested in making sure that how things get developed in our community get developed appropriately, that has the best result. I don't have an official say in this process. My only action was to send names down to the city council and hope that they do the best work they can do. And I think that the people that are here, along with some of the other members of the LRA, are doing a great job so far. But this is really big, and this is something that I said in the when we were talking about when this kicked off. This is not going to be like your grandfather's plan. This is going to be something totally different. This is not going to be urban renewal of the past. I think because of the people that are involved in this, people who live in our community, people that are on the LRA, who are in our community and want change for the better, I think it's going to be a total home run when it's done with. And it won't be easy, and don't get mad at each other too much. Know that everybody is coming from a perspective that's to try to do the best by the city. And I see some members from other boards with us. Mr. Consoli from the Planning Board is with us today, so thank you so much for being. Zoning, I'm sorry. Yeah, my head's over. From the zoning board, so thank you from that. This Osco Lawrence, so I'm glad that he's around to talk about that. And a lot of property owners and a lot of neighborhood people. So I just want to say thank you for doing it, and I think at the end of it, we're going to have a great plan. All right? Thanks.
So I'm going to walk quickly through the agenda for tonight. Before I do that, I did want to say one other thing about sort of the way that this planning process is structured and what we hope to accomplish. And that is that although we're going to be talking about a study area that's been defined for purposes of this planning study, the boundaries for the plan itself have not yet been determined. That's one of the first things that the board, with your feedback, will do. And I know we've heard already from people who have said, we want to make sure that parts of the city that are not in the study area are recognized as important and part of the future that we hope to build. And we hear that, we see that. And the goal is to create a plan that benefits the whole city regardless of precisely where the boundaries fall, because many of the areas that we're talking about are places that we all live, we work, we play, we visit, we shop, we spend time in. And so this is a place collectively that's going to matter for all of us, and the future of this area, wherever the boundaries are, will matter for all of us. So I wanted to provide that perspective as we go into the process of talking about the plan and how we go forward. So with that, wanted to just describe again a little bit about the agenda for tonight. So we're going to be hearing from our fantastic consultant team of partners from the Cecil Group, and they will be introducing themselves. As Kristen indicated, I came on board around about April to help the Redevelopment Authority pull the team together to create this plan. There's a lot of expertise, a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills that are needed, from real estate and market analysis to zoning, urban design, land use, and so forth. And so we needed a team that really had the depth to take on a plan of this scope with us, and we're very pleased through the selection process to have found the Cecil Group, Emily and Steve and their team, Kevin, who have already been a great support to this process and who will be very involved and who you will hopefully get to know quite well. So we're in good hands with the team. They've done a lot of work on urban renewal plans, revitalization plans in other communities in Massachusetts and throughout New England. So with that, I think I will hand it off to, I believe, Steve for the next part of the agenda. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Maggie. So we are a team of professionals who have worked in communities all across Massachusetts and New England, trying to help transform the future from where it has been in the past. And we're going to describe a little bit about the team and the folks that will be working together with you over the course of the coming year, and a little bit about where we come from and the approaches. Because as we look at this plan, it will be an urban renewal plan. And in the bad old days, back in the 60s and 70s, urban renewal planning didn't necessarily move communities forward. But there's been a change in approach that's very significant, and this is a really important tool for Lawrence to think about. So in terms of the team, the Cecil Group is a planning and urban design, physical planning, and landscape firm in Boston. And here are the people on the screen that we'll be working with. I'm serving as the overall director, and Emily's the project manager. Kevin Gurley is an urban designer. Marguerite Iglesia, who's planning to be part of this a little bit later, is an urban designer and planner. We think it's great because we've got Margaret Superchurch, and of course Margarita Iglesia is also Meg Church. So we've got two Meg Churches working together on this. Allison LaFleur and Kevin Gurley I mentioned, and then Jean Pan, who is here, is a landscape designer. So that's the team that we'll be providing to help things out. So if we take a look at different areas of Massachusetts that are in the midst of change, we've had an opportunity to help out in the early days of formulating the rules and the parts that will come together. If you all know Assembly Square, it was a wreck for a very long time. It was actually an automobile assembly plant. Really long, that's why they called it Assembly Square over in Somerville. But the opportunity was there in part because of the transit that's there and could be there to really transform that into an important part of the city that's providing jobs, revenues, places to live, and places to shop. And as you're driving up and down Route 93 these days, there's buildings that are emerging really rapidly. It's taken about 10 years to get to that point, but it's blooming. And we had an opportunity to structure the urban renewal plan or the redevelopment plan with the mayor in the city a number of years ago. I think that as we're taking a look at other kinds of locations. Salem, again, it's almost hard to remember, but if you were around long enough, Salem was really a wreck for a long time, downtown Salem. They had some fits and starts on things that would work, but pieces started to come together, and what we found is that the urban renewal plan was a very important part of that, and we've just completed an update for them, and one of the keys in Salem and one of the keys for Lawrence is the historic fabric, the buildings, the history that is here is really important as a basis for thinking about the future, the buildings, the character, the characteristics, and that's what Salem has learned how to work with very well. We're working along a number of different waterfronts, including New Bedford. So again, communities that have had an industrial past but are changing gears. So the important thing to remember is that with an urban redevelopment plan of this sort, the city will establish what its plan should be, but it's a very important tool that is empowered by the state. It gives the city some special capabilities that we'll get into. And so as a result, the Department of Housing and Community Development needs to actually approve and has some careful checkpoints in the process to make sure that the process has been open, has really involved the public. That's what we're kicking off tonight, and that it is something that is really supported by the municipality. Okay. So requiring significant participation is part of every step along the way, and we're going to be getting into a different mode where we're going to talk less and listen more in not too distant future, and that's what the papers and the tables are all about. But one of the things that is important is that the state, as it's looking at the different areas and communities that are redeveloping, has a series of sustainable development principles. We need to be developing communities that are less reliant on automobiles, less reliant on energy, are going to be more sustainable, and I think important, having come out of the recent recession, are more sustainable economically as well, because all of these things come together. So that's one of the important aspects of what we're going to be doing. So what we're going to do now is Emily's going to talk a little bit more about the public process, but in thinking about that, we will be having the idea that the community will shape the plan. There are going to be some steps that will require a public hearing, city council approval of the plan that emerges, but other people are going to be involved, certainly the mayor and the planning board, all of the different core groups that are the stewards of the future for Lawrence need to come together for an approval stage that will happen at the end of this phase of the process. But in the end, what we can't do, and we should all remember, is that we can have great ideas on paper, but it's the private sector and investment that's going to come and rebuild and provide the jobs and the opportunities. So as we think about the ideas that we may bring to the table, we should think of this as almost an invitation. How do we set the stage? How do we invite the private sector participants who will make the investments, rebuild the infrastructure? Now, as part of this, we'll set up requirements so that there are regulations and a review process so that as each step of the redevelopment occurs, whether it's on a block or in a building, that it's meeting a character and a quality that you all approve of. Now, in thinking about this, the Lawrence Redevelopment Authority has a series of jobs that it is set out to do, and we're working for the LRA to fulfill those specific jobs, and that is economic development, job creation that comes along with it, an improved quality of life. It's a better place to live, it's a better place to work, and that brings economic development. But I think importantly is this notion of fiscal stability. And by that, we're thinking about the taxes and revenues that get generated from a healthy downtown and city will create a much better basis for providing the kinds of services and needs in the future. So that's the job of the LRA that we're helping out with. So we need to think a little bit about how to create the conditions for that future investment. How do you set the stage and invite productive development and businesses into Lawrence.
Thank you, Steve. So again, my name is Emily Ennis. I'm the project manager for this, and I'm delighted to see so many of you here tonight. What I'm going to do initially is walk you through the process of the urban renewal planning stages that we're doing, talk to you a little bit about the calendar, show you the study area that we're looking at the moment, and then just give you a general idea of what we've learned so far. As Kristen said, this really is the very beginning stage, and we're doing two things as part of this. This is a very data-driven process. We are trying to collect a lot of information. Some of that is quantitative information. It's information that can be measured. It's information that is coming from the city, things like the assessor's database, building permits, fire data. But the other is the qualitative data, and that's the stories. That's what we hear from people on the street. And we're going to be asking you tonight to give us some of that qualitative data. I'm going to show you some data we've already collected and just get the conversation started. So let's go to the process. This is what we're doing now with the data. What's here now? What's missing? What are your future hopes and fears for the area? And then what can the LRA do to make those hopes happen? So right now, we're in stage one of a three-part process. The first part is exploring and refining the strategy. That's confirming the overall area of the urban renewal area. We may or may not have the right boundaries at the moment, and actually the exercises we do tonight will help us with that. Then we're going to come up with a strategy of exactly what we would recommend the LRA to do in the next process. That may be more data collection. It may be looking at a specific project or projects and evaluating them. We'll know a little bit better towards the end of December, beginning of January. So stage two is those additional studies, more public outreach, more really delving into the data, not just that the city has, but things like market trends. What is out there that could affect Lawrence in the broader region? And that will lead us to creating the draft urban renewal plan. And then finally, the third stage is to take that draft plan, show it to the public, get your comments back again, and then once we've revised that draft, take it through the approval process. And there are a number of actors in that: the planning board, the city council. The mayor doesn't have a formal role under DHCD regulations, but absolutely has a huge role in terms of the community. So our job right now in this first and second stage is really listening to all of you, but also informing you, telling you where we are and what we've learned at every step. And we're doing that through the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I hope some of you are interested and will stay on tonight to learn more about that. These public workshops and presentations, we're also doing some smaller, what we called stakeholder or focus group meetings, and you'll see some of the results of those tonight. We've been meeting with city officials and staff, and will continue to do so. And we're spending a lot of time. We have really structured this process to have a huge public input and outreach section. So again, we're going to be finishing up this first stage sort of towards the end of December, beginning of January. Then we're going to be refining the plan elements over the winter and the spring. I'm hoping we don't get too much snow during that period, because we'll be wanting to come back to all of you. And then finally moving into the draft report and approval process, summer to fall. This is, and Maggie referred to this earlier, this is the current study area boundary. And you'll note on your maps tonight in front of you, you can see it gently outlined in red, but in fact, we're going to be looking at the whole city tonight. But this gives you an idea. It is composed of several different areas that have already been planned. So we had the Reviviendo Gateway Initiative, we had the Open Space and Recreation, but more recently we have a Merrimack Street land use planning. So we looked at all of these areas, or rather the LRA looked at all of these areas and said, let's start with this because there's work that's been done, but there may be other areas that need to either come in or go out of the study area. So we've got a couple of stats. If you looked at if you got the flyer and that's how you knew how to be here, you've seen some of these already. These all came from the assessor's data, and we're still trying to figure out what they mean. You'll actually see some of these maps tonight. So this is the first map. We're looking at here the age of buildings by decade. And the key idea, and by the way, this will be on the web, so you can spend some time looking at the maps, but we don't have a lot of time to go into detail, which is good because I could talk about them for days. The pace of building slowed significantly after the 1950s, and it was interesting because I spoke to somebody who said, well, why did you choose those parcels before 1950s as your historic parcels? And I said, well, I looked at this map, and the pace slowed, and he said, oh, well, that's when the mills stopped. Really, and I said, oh, well, that would explain it. I didn't realize that's when the mills really stopped, and that would be it right there. So this is your building coverage, and we look at it as sort of a visualization of the density of the area. And what's interesting, and I don't have this map tonight, but it's actually the buildings on the outside of the study area are much more dense. But what it tells us, if you look at how of those parcels have been filled up, is most of the investment is likely to be rehabilitation or adaptive reuse. You don't have a lot of areas for big, huge new development coming in. There's not a lot of blank parcels. This map is just the general land use, and it shows us that there's a diversity of uses. That's an opportunity for what in planning speak is the 18-hour city. It means that there is something going on most of the day, whether it's people getting up, going for their coffee, going to work, going out after work, shopping during the day. It's not quite the 24-hour city of a New York, but is these 18-hour cities are what a lot of smaller cities are looking for these days. Now, this is interesting. This is something that Maggie asked us to look at, is just how many parcels are actually waterfront parcels, how many front onto the water. So you can see that in bright blue. It's interesting because in many communities, those can be the more valuable parcels if they're redeveloped, but they don't have to be. In some communities, like New Bedford, those are the working parcels. So, but they can be an asset, but the next slide will show you that they can also be problematic in that waterfront parcels can flood. So you see here the 100-year flood zone and the 500-year flood zone. And what that means is there are some challenges to those waterfront parcels. How do you design for potential flooding, and how often does that flooding actually happen? So the city and state ownership is something else we look at. And what's key about this is both the city and the state have a significant presence in the current study area. And then we started looking, that was all assessors data. This is us starting to look at the building and plumbing permits and seeing that there has been, not unexpectedly, given that we were coming out of the recession, an increase from 2010 to 2015, a little bit of a drop off from 2014 to 2015. But what we're looking at here is how much of this represents a new investment into the community from building permits, and how much of it is repair and maintenance. And we're still working on that data because new investment signals that people are seeing opportunities in this area. And then fires is the other thing that we're looking at, and that kind of ties to the building permits. You're going to get a building permit after a fire. We're still cross-referencing this data. Now, this is coming out, and it's going to be hard to read from back there because it's fairly detailed, but again, this will be on our website, lawrencetbd.com. This is what we're starting to pull out of those smaller stakeholder meetings. And what we've done is we've asked them to do a different set of mapping from what you're going to do tonight. We were asking them about walkability, because the ability to walk from where you live to where you work, or where you live to where you shop, or want to eat out after dinner is something that is critical to many downtowns. And so the LRA asked us to add this to one of those things that we're researching. So we asked people, where do you walk? Where do you not walk? Where are you afraid to walk? Where would you like to walk? And we started mapping out what those routes were in the different colors, and then asked people to say, what are the things that keep you from walking? And then in the next slide, we also looked at what the opportunities were and what the barriers were to redevelopment or to change in the area. So again, starting to circle in this case, fewer walking routes, but more sort of general areas. We see this as an area of potential, or we see this as a challenge where something, whether it's land ownership or environmental conditions or something else, may be a challenge to something happening. So we're going to open it up now. That's a quick overview of the quantitative data, and you will see a lot more from us over the next year. But we really wanted to give you a chance to take a breather, look at some of the information we've given you about urban renewal and the quantitative data, and ask some questions now. And then I'm going to tell you about the mapping exercises that we're going to do tonight. So does anybody have any questions at this point? Any concerns, or are you all eager? Yes, sir. Kristen, do you want to?
The board is not new. I'm not sure when it dates to, but at least the 1950s. There's been a redevelopment authority in the city. The redevelopment authority over the years has done many things for the good and bad, I would say, actually, to be candid. But some projects, like, for instance, the Lawrence General Hospital and some of the newer buildings, which are from the 60s, that was all an urban renewal plan. The Plains neighborhood was another one. And then probably the most successful one, I would say, is the industrial park. So that's a Lawrence, in past decades. So this is a new board in the sense that all four of us have been appointed to the board by the city council. Nominated by the mayor within the last year and a half. So we're newly constituted in that way, but the board has always been in operation. I actually want to give a shout out to Anne Marie Doherty, who's going to kill me, but this young woman has been keeping us straight as a board for a long time and has a lot of the history of the city in her fingertips and keeps us in line in that way. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
That's a ringing endorsement. Any other questions at this point? All right, so Kevin, if you take us to the next slide. So we have a couple of ways for you to participate tonight. We have 2 mapping exercises. We also have, you'll see a long sheet of paper over there rolled out where we're asking for some of your future ideas. Please be creative. We're looking for all sorts of ideas. And you should also have received a card when you came in that asks some questions. So we hope that you'll fill that out and leave it with us as you go for the end of the evening. But for now, we're going to do 2. The first exercise, we're going to ask you, what are the boundaries of your neighborhood? So you're each going to take a different color pen. You should all have a different color. And there are plenty of tables up front, by the way. So those of you who are sitting in the back will get to move forward. So you're going to keep the same color of pen for both exercises. We're going to ask you to draw out the boundaries of your neighborhood and your facilitators. Facilitators, if you'll please raise your hands. Okay. And Spanish-speaking facilitators, please raise your hands. So if you want to interact in Spanish, find your Spanish-speaking facilitator. And then we're going to ask you, so, did you see who, do you have a question? Yes, please, so if everybody could hold off for a sec, yes.
So
Here, speak into this. So
Before you, oh, that's okay.
Okay.
We did a list, right?
Yes.
Of stuff that had been assessed for the community for the
Yes.
last, what was it, decade or so?
Oh, the building permits, yes.
So, before you're talking about Riviendo and
Oh, the planning, yes.
the planning initiatives that had taken place over the last decade. I'm just a little curious about.
Hang on.
I'm
Ladies and
actually-
gentlemen, we've got a question up here.
I
Yes,
should be really candid.
please.
I'm not really, yeah, I was a little nervous about saying something, but I'm just gonna go for it. I wasn't so happy that we had very little community engagement for Merrimack Street. To be quite frank, I called Jim Barnes' office and said, really? 3 meetings at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? When state funding is coming down?
Okay.
And we have this new partnership, and we know who's receiving a tremendous amount of that money over there. Why was the community not engaged before all of that took place? They showed up at just a couple of different community outreach activities, and really, literally, the meetings were 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So who here can attend a meeting at 4 o'clock in the afternoon for planning? So I think a lot of people, I'm probably not the only person who's thinking this, but maybe I'm the only idiot who's gonna say it, is that how far along is any kind of redevelopment plan already in place, looking at, and now we're coming into a community conversation to just sort of suss out, is the community on board, or how much fight are you gonna get down the road when things start to fall out? Because it would be nice to know if we're actually involved in a preliminary planning process, or if there's something that's already set in motion.
So Merrimack Corridor, I cannot speak to because we're not the consultants on that, but I am always glad to hear when people have concerns about public process and ask them early, because that allows us to address it and make sure there's plenty of input. So I'll ask maybe somebody else to speak to that. As far as this process goes, you are at the very beginning of this process. We are just starting those conversations. So there are no plans, and Steve, I know you probably, or Kristen, actually.
Sorry.
So you go that way.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that it wasn't an easy question to ask. And it is precisely the question that these two asked us before they signed the contract. They were like, is this one of those like things where you already know what you're going to do? And, you know, is it a real planning process or is it not a real planning process? So I can assure you this is a real planning process in the sense that we need to know what to do. And we hired the best people we could find, and I'm pretty psyched about who we hired. And we're gonna take the time we need to take. And I think, you know, keep asking the question. And I feel like you kind of know a real plan when you see it, when it's done, and I think we're going to get there. But, you know, I think that's the right question to ask. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
And I'd just like to add, we're going to learn from past experiences and other plans. But what we're going to be doing together is we need to start looking at Lawrence through your eyes. This is a community that you know, and that's what this is about. We want to see, how do you see the neighborhoods? How do you move around? Because in the end, a really successful downtown and city is a place that you experience day to day. It's a place that is a quality experience. It's a great place to shop. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to move around. And what we're going to start with is understanding what it is that you understand and see in Lawrence, and be able to learn from that so that we will be able to use that as a frame of reference when we begin to think about what should happen. So tonight's not so much about what should happen, it's how do we even see this place, how do we use this place, and how could we use it differently in the future as part of our experience.
Okay, the only other last thing I would add is that, is it possible for us to know about what's in place and in motion? Like, as we're mapping this, Northern Essex Community College has some really tremendous, fantastic things that are on board that are in much of that downtown area. How many other private developers or partners through the partnership or through the city's initiative in the last year know what some of that is, so that we can capitalize on them, or at least have an understanding of how they're going to impact the city before we even start planning something else?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. As I think Emily and Steve have both said, this is really an information gathering phase, and I think it's a great idea to actually try and map and list what are those projects right now that are on the books. I think many of you are familiar with some of them. We're familiar with many of them. There are, you know, many things in motion simultaneously, and so figuring all that out and keeping track of it is part of the challenge, right? So, you know, we listed the plans just to demonstrate what's been completed and what's underway. And those are in various different stages. And part of the question is not just what's the plan, but what do you do to make a plan real? And that's part of what we'll be talking about here. So I think all of this is really up for discussion, but we will take that question and go back and make sure we can convey to you accurately what will be changing over the next year or two that will influence the way we all experience the city. So there's a question in the back.
Yeah, with no disrespect to the mayor, I know he has great plans for the city. How free are you people going to be from other outside political influences? Mainly some of our city councilors that have their own designs, what they want to do, what they want. How free are you going to be from their interference?
Here's what I would say to that. The opportunity, and I would say the challenge in front of us, and that's all of us in this room and the council, is to come up with a plan, a vision, a direction that we can all be on board with. If we can't do that, and that includes the council, then we don't make the kind of progress we want to make. So I think it's incumbent on us to figure out how we resolve areas of difference, how we get our voices heard, how we get, you know, our agenda out there in a way that we can all talk about. That probably means that nobody will get everything they want, but hopefully everybody gets some of what they want. And so, you know, for people who look in from the outside, this is our chance to say, hey, we can, you know, we can agree about what we want to be, where we want to go. So that's the truth of it, is we all have to be on board.
Aren't you somewhat controlled by the fact that the city council does approve the budgets that you people are working with?
The council does not control the budget for this plan, but they will control the budget certainly for other elements of implementation. So yeah, I mean, the council has important role and control, without a doubt. But on the other hand, you know, things that happen in the city need to happen with council support. So again, I think that's the condition we work in. I think it's the charge we have. And I know we have a new council coming in January, some folks continuing on. We hope that they'll be part of this process from the beginning as well. So, other questions?
The information you had talked about earlier, the permitting, you had statistics on how many permits were pulled. On your website, will that expand at all so that we know who maybe is applying to build? I don't care if somebody's changing their bathtub, doesn't bother me. But if they're gonna put up, some kind of housing, whether it's rooming housing or whether it's actual, development of some sort, is that gonna be expanded upon so we would see that as it relates to?
Yeah. We've looked at trying to map some of that information. There's some challenges, as Emily alluded to, where the address with the building permit is not always the same address that's in the assessor's database, so it actually takes some time to unwind all of that. But I think what you're asking is another version of the question we heard earlier, which is, how do we really know what's happening? How do we know what's planned? How do we know what's underway? And I think there are a few different ways to look at that question, and certainly building permits is one view of it. So I think, in general, we would like to be able to say, yes, we know that there are projects planned here, here, and here, and how does that influence and shape our thinking about what happens next? Other questions? Yeah.
I came in late, so I don't know what was covered by far, but, as far as I understand, the urban renewal has to do with, you're gonna be rezoning things, I imagine, right?
It could be, but it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, possibility, right? So, and, I don't know how other cities have done it, but they, in terms of zoning for business, and having the city back up different, business models, and not just having, just your standard hierarchical kind of business, because we're facing the issue of limited space, high density. Not everybody's going to be able to have a job. Not everybody's going to be able to be an entrepreneur. Is there some way to incentivize citywide backing for like a cooperative model, workers cooperative, stuff like that, and to educate people on these models so that they can be more sustainable, more people served, more people getting money?
Yeah, we have actually two economists, development economists on the team with different perspectives. FXM associate Frank Mahady and Stantec Drew Leff. And their job is to take a look at what's happening today to start with, but we're going to be looking at models from other communities all over the country that are being successful, because in the end, the things that we're going to be setting up, the incentives, the zoning, have to actually work for actual businesses. And it's not 1950. It's a different world. And that's good because there is a lot of entrepreneurial activity. So we have two specialists that we're going to be working with to help bring those ideas to the table that we can take a look at and find out which ones and ideas we're going to create together will make Lawrence successful. Really good. Thank you. So I think we're probably any more questions, or we can plunge in. We'll have some time at the end, by the way, to follow up with questions. But I think as we move into groups, there's a great table here. I'm going to facilitate it. It's going to be a really great table. You should come up here. It's important is to find a place where you can talk this through. And again, I think the facilitators know what the exercise is about. But why don't you run through one more time, because it's been a second or two.
Yeah, absolutely. So number one is map out your neighborhood. Actually draw the boundaries of your neighborhood as you see it. And then draw from your neighborhood to where if you work in Lawrence, to where you work. If you commute to somewhere else, to your point of commute. If you go to school in Lawrence or wherever, or your daily routine is not work, but going to the library, whatever, do that. If you don't live in Lawrence, welcome, and draw from where you enter Lawrence into work. So that's number one. Number 2 is going to be to draw roughly from where you live to where you do your regular shopping. Again, if that's in Lawrence, draw it to Lawrence. If it's outside of Lawrence, draw to the point at which you leave Lawrence. And write down, these maps are for scribbling, so write down where it is you're going to. And also to where you play meaning where you go out to eat, where you go to music, the parks that you go to, any of those things that you consider recreation. So we'll do that. Those 2 exercises, your facilitators are going to guide you through that. We're also going to talk a little bit about your concerns for the area and your hopes or the future vision. So get plunged in. Those of you who don't have tables, please come down here, plenty of room. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask one person from each table to report back the single most important thing they learned, or the group learned rather, from the discussion of these maps. So we'll go around in order. I want you to hold up your maps and let everybody see them, and then give your single most important thing. We'll start, Steve, do you think your table is ready? Yeah, sure. Okay, so we'll start with Steve's table, work it the way around and back. Yes, one spokesperson from each table. If they need it for the TV.
All right, thank you.
You hold that.
What I have learned through this process is the understanding of what is a neighborhood. Some people believe that the whole city is their neighborhood. Maybe the newest person in this city, and I just believe that the Cora around my house is my neighborhood, including the public parks that I love and that I've been servicing since I've been in this city. And I've loved something particularly is the opportunity that this city presents and that are not fully met. And I'm gonna go through the way people commute. Some people, they just turn around from their home next door, they can walk, which is good. You can walk and make your life through the core. But I work in Boston and I have to commute to Boston. And it was curious for some people why I will go through the cemetery north to go down south to Boston. But the city has a great opportunity. From the downtown, you can go straight through highways, 495, and you are in downtown Boston. We also have the commuter rail right away, and you just walk. You can ride your bike, and you don't need a car. So it can be a very sustainable city and a green city. Why not? Thank you. Maybe I'm going to go to positive and negative things, right?
Real
real quick, positive, maybe big, here we go, hold this up.
Positive.
Positive things is that I would say we got great things here. I love the outdoor, and we got the common, and we get beautiful parks around. If you walk through the White Line, I see people from Lawrence Groundworks did a great job, but we need to maintain them. And we can consider that everyone can do something, and as we usually say, if you need change, start it. So you can pick up the trash around, and you don't have to kind of make it a big deal, and that can start a change. Anyway, I've been doing it through RED. I think people know about. I don't want to talk about myself. We got the historic buildings, which are great, and we got the mill buildings that have been transformed into housing, commercial stuff, and it's a great opportunity for the city, since you can walk from your house to downtown, and the downtown can be redeveloped. We get something which is kind of negative now, is that the downtown isn't what the makeup of the city is, really. The city is very diverse, I can say, an international city, an immigrant city, really, but the downtown isn't. You get, when I go there, I don't find anything for me. I have to go to Methuen or to Boston with my kid. Anyway, I just came from there, maybe. I'm gonna find stuff here and love it. Anyway, I've been switching from my doctor or my services, finding things in the city, bring the business in the city. But I should find those opportunity. Anyway, it's a market. I should find the offer. I don't know what else I could say.
I think that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. So I like this idea of focusing on the positive as well. So one thing that you learned and a positive thing that you came up with. Who is our? So other people show up, hold up your map. Should we hold up the map? Yep.
I'd just like to say, as they're setting up, that this was a self-facilitating group because I abandoned them. I was their facilitator. So they did all the work themselves without any help at all.
You guys gotta help me here. So first of all, one thing that we learned is that within our group, we had in common a lot the places that we walked to, the places that we played, where we our entertainment, and it's mostly through where Essex Street is because there's a lot of parking spaces, lots, garages. So that's kind of where we mostly pass through, where our destinations are. But we also noticed that on Broadway Street, though there are a lot of businesses and a lot of places to eat and shop, it's not as, we don't use it as much, kind of. We don't, it's less, help me out.
You're killing it, yeah.
That there could be a better use for it. It's congested, there's a lot of people and a lot of traffic going through it, but as for destinations, there's not as much, and I think that we could have some change in that. Anybody else?
Down to the next group. Pass down the mic, sorry. You could pass that down to the next group.
Down to the next group.
That's all right, I'll do it without the TV, bro. All right, TV. All right, so we came up with a few great things. We have downtown, which is great for, and at least what my group was using it a lot for was great eatery, great nightlife, but not as diverse as we would like it. We do a lot of schools, use the bodegas. You have barbershops and beauty salons. As you can see, everybody at my table looks fresh. Great place to find domestic furniture, pharmacies. Public pools is something that you don't find in many places that you do find here in Lawrence. Sports, softball especially, huge. Reservoir, we're lucky to have that. Okay, but there are, as we all know, some downside stuff. So, there's a lot of exits, in Lawrence. And most of the major shopping area, is going to be done outside. We might have Market Basket, but we're doing a lot of our food shopping outside. Clothing, retail stuff, outside. A lot of breakfast, brunch, whatever the case is, it's outside. A person in particular was like, well, why can't I find a good Italian restaurant here in Lawrence? And there may be one, but we're just not as diverse. And that's one of the things that we want to bring here. Let's see here. Exactly, Tripoli's. So a lot of good points. Go back to here. Key findings, not diverse enough. We'd like to have, more of a young professional, things geared to that, more things geared towards family-oriented businesses. Let's see here. Major shopping major shopping is all done outside of Lawrence. Traffic control and security and lighting, I think, are all major things that we come up with that we want to improve here. So, thank you.
Okay. Sure. Ready? You want to hold one against the other? Okay.
This is our neighborhoods, and this is where everyone's at.
Our neighborhoods? Hello, everyone. So what we came up with is that we all basically do everything in the same area. Although we're individuals, we basically cross paths. Everything happens right here. This is our neighborhoods, and this is where we work, and they're really close to each other. So Lawrence is very small and very community-driven and connected. So we're hoping that we can, with this redevelopment, cater to that idea that we're, connected and close, and that whatever plan happens is to benefit Lawrenceans and people who live here. To bring resources into Lawrence where we can just be sustainable by ourselves. Yeah. Thank you.
So for our part of this project, we recognize a lot of the same things that a lot of other groups recognize. Essex Street, Broadway, there's a lot of nightlife and restaurants. There's a lot of shopping that people can do, just people don't realize it because of Salem, New Hampshire, the Loop, North Andover, and a lot of people that I went to school with. I went to school with people from Methuen, Andover, North Andover, Lawrence. Everyone just skips right over Lawrence when they think about, need some shoes, or I need to go grocery shopping. Everyone goes straight to Salem or the Loop and Methuen. And yeah, and I feel like we do have a lot to offer here, just no one really knows about it unless you actually go down the street and not just take your every single day, the same route every day, because there's new things popping up everywhere. There's a business closing, there's 2 opening, there's 2 closing, there's 1 opening. I feel like that's how the city's always been, just in my experience, 21 years here. And right here.
A lot of the activity was all in that downtown area, and you could see the routes that people came and left all similarly right out to 495, except for this gentleman, he lives up on, what was it, Tower Hill? Yeah, so he did a lot of walking, completely around the whole.
The other things that they mentioned were that restaurants and commerce are kind of spread out, which makes it hard to walk from business to business. Usually, you got to get back in your car if you're there isn't really a place where you can really comfortably walk around, feel safe that you're gonna walk around. And then alternative transportation modes, perhaps. And then also, so kind of adding to what you were saying, it's just that it's kind of hard for retail to compete with New Hampshire having different tax situations, so it's hard for kind of those big box retail to survive here.
And just to add on to that, I feel like the businesses that are in these not as highlighted places of the city, those are being supported mainly by the residents of those communities, even though people going in and out of the city pass by them every single day, just don't know what exactly is inside. So I feel like that's something that we need to draw attention to.
I apologize for the mess. Somebody stole the pad from us. Do I really need a mic? CQ? Well, okay, we're playing radio. Okay. A lot of stuff, like I said, is written here, so I'm going to have to go haphazardly. One of the first things, shopping. Shopping in the downtown area is kind of a pain. When you get down there, when you get down Essex Street, you see several places that have their mattresses, their couches, 97 different shades of stretch spandex, stuff on dummies. They've taken up the sidewalk, no permits. Enforce the city ordinances in the downtown area. Makes money for the city. The awnings, the signs, merchandise displays. Shopping. Most people I talk to, we all deal with New Hampshire. Less aggravation. Trying to get in the downtown area, you're at the mercy of whatever the cab drivers want to do. If they want to double, triple park, delivery trucks on Essex Street, they do what they want. So why should we even bother? New Hampshire, oh, I forgot to say, New Hampshire's tax-free. A lot of things in this area. The sidewalks. Sidewalks are terrible. I know from personal experience. I walked a few of them in the campaign. The sidewalks are terrible. Here, up in that area, and for this matter down here. Entertainment, what do? We have the St. Patty's Day Parade. That's probably the biggest form of entertainment in here. Well, okay, we do have the several Hispanic parades. I would be...
Semana Parade, Semana Week, you forgot about that, Richard. You're fired.
I am old school. I was not taught Spanish, so you're doing good that I just remembered the two Spanish parades. But yes, there is entertainment in the city for people, but it's limited. It's far between. Let's see, what else do we got over here? Some of the complaints in the downtown area needs to be more lights. Again, the sidewalks need to be fixed. The streets need to be fixed. Remove the graffiti. Keep the streets clean. Maintain everything we got. Unfortunately, I mean, it's the commentary on politics. The first people that get the budget cut is the DPW. They're the ones we need out there doing it. Okay? They're the whipping boys for the budget. Let's see, what else do we got here? Like I said, everybody's got going shopping in New Hampshire for a variety of reasons. Okay, one other thing I noticed here. We do have an existing railroad right away. Why can't something be done to develop that into something similar to, some of you may know the Mattapan high-speed trolley line from Ashmont to Mattapan. Makes local stops. The right-of-way is there. Put 3 or 4 stops in. You could even tie into the existing railroad structure down there. Not to make a physical connection, but you could tie in and put a small stop there. There's a lot of things that could be done to improve the city. I live on Cross Street. I would like to see the area expanded out to Hampshire Street, up to the river, back along Manchester Street. But I don't know. Did I miss anything, Dan?
They were talking about bringing people into downtown. I think they should get rid of the parking meters in downtown because people won't come to downtown with all the parking meters, in my opinion.
Parking meters, the city deserves a right to make revenue off of people, reasonable revenue. The concept that they have, I don't like seeing a lot of our money going to the Chicago mobsters, as I call them. Okay. But, okay, with that.
Very good.
Come
on, Brad. Come on. Yeah, you're holding this up. Okay.
What did you learn?
So,
the most important thing, since most of us, since I was the only one that actually lives in the city for my group, we noticed that, one, I don't go downtown much. And two, 495 93 is our friend, because obviously it lets us go into downtown for the people that do, obviously for the post office, for the bank. There's a couple bakery shops downtown, Tripoli's. There's an Italian shop that we love. Definitely the highways are important. So that was one of the most important things. But with the highway comes traffic and congestion. So that was like one of the things, the pain points that we noted. And then walkability. So Brad does a lot of walking in the city. And he noted that, I mean, obviously there's certain areas that there's blight and not the prettiest. So obviously that's something that we have to work on. But again, this is why we're here, right? Now, the positive things that we saw, just fast food, nightlife, major highways, and we have a diverse workforce. Some of the negative things, not much things for kids to do. We need more parks, like maybe like an indoor gym, maybe something like like another YMCA, something like that. Again, the traffic, the traffic meters on Essex Street. I mean, on Saturdays, I think that's a bit much. And then thanks, Ben, for creating more traffic this week.
Thank you all very much. So I'm going to turn it quickly back over to Maggie, who's going to let
All right, so thank you all so much for coming tonight. I know there are about 327 events in the city this week, in addition to all of your regular personal lives and commitments. So thank you for taking the time with us. Wanted to let you know about a few upcoming opportunities. Right after this meeting, we're going to be providing information about the Citizens Advisory Committee, which is one really terrific way to be involved in this process. The CAC will have some additional work and some additional time on this process with us. So if that's of interest to you and you'd like to stay closely involved, please stay for that this evening, and you'll learn about how to get involved, what the application process is. The Redevelopment Authority will be voting in the CAC at their December meeting, so if you're interested, don't lose time, come talk to us now. The other thing I wanted to make sure everyone knows about, there's a flyer at the table. On December 8th, we'll be doing an open house drop-in at El Taller from 6 to 8. It's before the comedy show, which is 8 to 8. Don't get us mixed up with the comedy show. But hopefully we'll get some good fun and some good work done there as well. The other thing I wanted to say, many of you asked, how are we getting the word out? Where are we posting? How are we sharing this? We're doing it through a lot of channels, but the most important channel is all of you. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your coworkers, put it on Facebook, put it on whatever social media site you have that I am too old to even know about, and let folks know how to be involved. So we really encourage you to stay with us, and if you can, stay for the CAC meeting. So.